Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to today's Grain Market Blast. It is Monday, the 31st of March. If you're like me, you're wondering where the hell the week went because I feel like I blink and I missed it. But anyway, regardless, you're here, you're back with us in the Grain Market Blast with me and the amazing Angie Setzer, where Angie will provide a rapid roundup of the latest pricing flows and market moving news in agricultural markets. But before she does, so I don't get a slap on the wrist, I better get the legals out the way. So, as usual, nothing discussed in this Spaces session constitutes trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ or indeed the hosts, which, as you know by now, is myself, Mr. Ryan Paisley, and the amazing Mrs. Angie Setzer. Good morrow to you. Good morning.
Good morrow to you. I have my tea to start my
Oh,
day. Yeah,
is,
you
is is that
you
is that
you
really is that really strong enough for Liberation Week?
no.
I thought you were going to go with like I don't know Fireball or whatever it is you crazy clowns drink over there.
Pretty much. I'm just going to spend the next several days wasted. I think it'll be the easiest way for everyone. That's really my advice. So here we are. Happy Monday. If you're wondering if I'm okay, the answer is absolutely not. But I am funny. So we're here. So that's all we got today, right?
It's our defense mechanism.
Right? Yeah. We have a USDA report out today. That's our biggest focus. Like I would be remiss not to start with that, obviously, because
Oh, and
it's
just
a
a quick
huge
shout
deal.
out.
Yes.
You and Big Carl are doing a dedicated spaces on this later on, right? In about
Yes.
two and a half
Us
hours time, two and a quarter
and the
hours
big
time.
guy. Yeah, me and the big guy about 2.5 hours, 11:55 Eastern. You can find it on the X, my Twitter or whatever you want to call it. We are going to do the spaces. We do the live spaces. Started it a couple of years ago, and I thought it was a super great idea, and it's actually picked up. People seem to really like it, but these big reports, like I can't hide my nerves. So if you tune in today, you'll be able to hear me like you'll probably just be able to hear how sweaty my palms are. So yay, USDA report
Yay!
day.
Oh,
So
you're
yeah,
really
so
selling it.
coming coming into today's numbers, the biggest thing is that's hard about these reports. Like supply and demand number is kind of like, okay, based on this data that we have so far, we should end up here. This report today is survey driven. So the acreage number is going to be the USDA sends out surveys to farmers and says how many acres of corn, how many acres of beans, what are you going to plant? As it stands today, what are you going to plant this year? And then, of course, we get quarterly stocks, which is more of a reconciliation, just of overall supply, what's available to us, how what's on the farm, what's been moved into the commercial, what's disappeared. And it just kind of gives us an insight into all that's going on. And to me, I'll be watching quarterly stocks really closely because we've talked about some of the spread, how wide the spreads have been in the face of ending stocks and some of these other things. There's just been some whispers that, perhaps quarterly stocks could come in higher than expected. I think if we, can jump that hurdle and not see them come in higher than expected, that's going to be supportive for one, of course. And then for two, we're going to be seeing what the acres look like. Traders are anticipating a higher corn acre number than what was seen from the USDA's Outlook Forum. So in the Outlook Forum numbers, USDA projected 94 million acres of corn. Traders are mostly expecting 94.7, 95. I feel like anything really below 94.5 is going to kind of surprise some folks, or at least catch the market leaning one way or another. Soybeans are anticipating closer to around 83 million. And so that'll be something that we'll watch. Last year, we'd had a similar sort of anticipation ahead of the report. We'd come in expecting a higher corn number than what was seen in the Outlook Forum projection from the USDA. And we actually came in with lower total acres. And to me, I think that is the thing that we have to be really careful of, or that may catch us kind of leaning in that wrong direction is I still stand that, urban sprawl is massive. If you're anywhere near an urban center, you're watching farm ground disappear by the day. We also have an increase in, solar panels. I'm not going to say that's contributing to millions of acres of loss, but you've got less acres than what we had before potentially. And so there's a few things, especially with farmer sentiment. At the start of March was also pretty poor because the market just kept kicking them in the face every day. So we'll see what the number says today. That's going to be our biggest focus. And once we get that out of the way, we'll be able to kind of build, at the very least, okay, we're on track for what we think we have for old crop. And we are looking at this as the potential for new, because this acreage number will be the number that the USDA uses in their May update, their May new crop update, and then again in June before it changes again in June. So yeehaw, giddy up. It's, just the only thing constant right now is change. So we have that going for us.
It's inconsistency.
Exactly. Woohoo. All right. And then point two is obviously Liberation Day. Where Wednesday is the day that we're building up to. Great excitement all around, if that's the proper word to use. And so April 1st is tomorrow. We're going to start to hear more, I feel like, because that's when the official wrap up of the review of trade policies, China's cooperation on phase one, and some of these other things are going to start to come out. There has been a lot more talk about, based on our math, this is what it would look like for
Yeah.
these countries to get tariffs, yada yada. But it's interesting because the administration, you have no idea. Like, and I can almost guarantee at this point, and I say you, I mean, it's just a general, like, none of us have any idea,
Ryan.
like, yeah, Ryan, you don't know, but no, it's more of a general you. But when it comes down to it, like, you don't have any idea. We don't have any idea, like, outside of the fact that almost every report that you hear first out of this administration, you could say is probably not going to be the final, right?
Yes.
So,
Oh,
like, last
absolutely.
last Monday, it was a more narrow approach, the dirty 15. Not everyone's going to get tariffs, no sectoral tariffs, yada yada yada. And this morning, is everyone's getting tariffs. Like, we're going to start with the tariffs and then roll back, though we are going to be much nicer. But now there's talk that we could go back to the blanket tariffs. In the Wall Street
Yeah.
Journal this morning, there was maybe this is just easier to say 25% to everybody on everything. And then we'll add these in, and we might roll those back or whatever. And so at this point, it's as clear as mud. You would think that we would be getting closer, and maybe inside there is, you know what I mean? And this is an intended chaos to the rollout because, whatever. I have no idea. But we went from one idea to another, back to another, to another, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so we're gonna be all over the place. We did see President Trump and Canada's new prime minister talk late last week. It didn't go terribly, but it appears as though most everyone's kind of just waiting until after the election now, which was one of the thoughts that President Trump was kind of toying with Canada to a certain extent, just because their
Yeah.
leadership wasn't clear. And so we may see, we had thought we were going to see rollbacks. We're not really sure what that looks like. And so, yeah, anything in trade is going to be watched very closely. But realistically speaking, almost every headline you hear between now and April 2nd is probably not going to be the way things land, if I had to
No.
guess.
And I think, and that kind of reaffirms what we've been saying. Well, it feels like months, but it's probably more like weeks. Where anyone
Years,
expect, yeah, tell me about it. When I was a little boy, but
right?
well, to be fair, I'm not that tall anymore. But anyway, regardless,
I
anyway,
wasn't going to
we
say
diverge,
it.
we diverge. But going back to what I was originally saying, anyone that is kind of under the assumption that after Liberation Day, again, I'm doing those air quotes that no one can see. Anyone that believes that that's going to see a drop off in tariff headline risk, you're going to be very, very disappointed.
It's
I
just
think
the
there's a good
starting point,
argument.
honestly, I
Well, this
feel
is it.
like.
I've got to,
Yeah.
yeah, I would be shocked if we don't see more afterwards, because that's when you're really going to see nations start scrambling, and that's when you're going to see the back and forth, like headlines. So and so says this, sources are saying this, and there's going to be a lot of noise in the market.
Yes. Yeah. Get prepared for more noise, not less. Though I think this will give us, like I said, a starting point in the sense of, like, here's the foundation, here's where everyone's
Yes.
going to be negotiating from. Like, at least we're able to pull that out and
Yeah. Well,
set it aside.
hopefully, hopefully,
Yes, hopefully. I'm
there's
going
not.
into it completely optimistic.
Yeah. Right.
Which is cute. I'm Charlie Brown, and the world is Lucy with the football, and I'm okay
Yeah.
with it. And then point three, really, just kind of looking more Russia, Ukraine, and so if you think that that situation
Yeah.
is,
God.
if we're getting any more clarity there, woof. Send me what you're smoking, because I have not found that strain yet. And so that really, when it comes down to it, we are struggling. Ukraine, like, Ukraine is working as best they can with the US. Let's not kid ourselves in that standpoint. But we are seeing another agreement has been floated. This one feels a bit more aggressive than the last. So the mineral agreement was not signed right now. This one is a mineral, oil, and gas. And one of the things that I find most interesting is from what folks are saying. Now, no one's seen the actual agreement. At least they hadn't as of Friday afternoon, and I hadn't seen anything over the weekend that it was much different. But apparently, per sources, this agreement also would cover oil and gas. And
Yeah.
so that would be interesting. In addition, it would also apply to private and public entities, which I also found kind of interesting because I think that's a bit of a change versus the first go around, which was,
Yeah.
the government and the US were going to work hand in hand to kind of explore and discover minerals and whatever they were able to find. Then hee haw, giddy up. That was, we
It's
were making
definitely, it
money
definitely
on it.
feels like, it's like what they call it, a live document or a fluid
Yes,
document.
it
It's
is
like, every time you go back to it,
moving.
someone's when
Yes.
you're sharing it across your team of 10 people, and every time you go back to it, it's like, hang on a second, that sentence definitely wasn't there this
Right, this
morning.
has 77 comments on it, and that's what this and so it'll be
Yes.
interesting to see because President Trump, basically, they've kind of presented this to Zelensky, and Zelensky's initially been like, "Yo, I don't know if I'll be able to get that through my parliament," which, obviously, if there's a public-private entity sort of whatever in there, I could see where people might balk at that pretty intensely. But Trump had said that a refusal to sign it would be a big mistake. It would create
Yeah.
big problems, not just one big, two, which that means they're really big problems.
Yeah.
And so it's just something to pay attention to because he's
Also,
got both sides.
this is
Yes.
it. It's worth floating as well that it was, because we mentioned it in the in our morning blast session this morning, also in the overnight news roundup Substack thing that we put out, which is just a recap of all the major headlines that have happened overnight, or in this case over the weekend as well. So definitely check that out on our Substack. But it was, I think it was the Wall Street Journal or someone quoted that President Trump had actually used the term. Well, he actually said to a journalist,
He's
he's quote pissed off with
pissed
Putin
off.
at the
I
moment.
got to
Yeah.
put that in my morning comments. It was just the same as when I was a kid and my aunt and uncle said you could
Yeah.
say
Right.
shit if you were talking
Yeah.
about
This is
poo.
it.
So
It's like, oh.
we are all talking, saying the S word over and over and over again, right? Like that's the same thing. I got to say pissed off in my morning comments, checking that off the bucket list. And yeah, he said Trump was
Yeah.
making
Right.
him big mad. Or Trump said Putin was making him big mad. And just in the sense he was talking poorly about Zelensky. Um, over the weekend is which was interesting because he had called in Putin had called him a leader that has not been voted in, kind of revisited that whole conversation all over again. This time Trump was like, we don't say that about him.
Yeah.
So he put the hand up and said stop. So it'll be interesting to see, just simply because we're not any like Russia is really aggressively targeting the front line in Ukraine because they know that wherever we stop, that's going to be frozen there. The
That's it. Yeah.
EU is saying no way, we're not rolling back sanctions, we're not doing this, we're not connecting them to SWIFT. Russia is saying if you don't, then we aren't going to participate in this Black Sea deal. So like we're a million miles apart in this,
Yes. Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
we're going to be for a while. And so some of the conversation about President Trump or Putin, excuse me, gosh darn, Russia's President Putin, dragging this thing out. There are too many names and too many tariffs, and I'm tired already. It's
Oh,
only
tell me
Monday,
about it. Tell
right?
me about it.
But Putin, a lot of folks have accused him of dragging this out because he wants to try to accumulate all that he can from a land standpoint. And that just feels obvious. Like Putin's not
Yeah.
going to be like, "Oh, well, we're running towards peace. All right, I guess I'll stop."
Yeah.
Cool, like
This is
it's
it. If
not
anything, it's going
happening.
to be a more aggressive final push because, like you said, when that ceasefire, hopefully at some point the official ceasefire happens, and that's where stop the clocks, draw the map right here kind of situation.
Yes. Yeah, and so that's what Russia's working towards, and that'll be something that we're paying attention to. And so, yeah, and then eventually we'll start to focus on weather. But it looks like it's going to turn a bit hotter in India, though we are getting more moisture in some of the U.S. wheat areas, and the forecast looks better for parts of Russia. Like yeah, it's not going to slow down at all.
Well,
Like
and also,
it's
anecdotally, I'm actually sat in the garden doing this, and what a fine spring morning or spring afternoon it is for me in London. So it's
Is it
glorious here.
nice area? Yeah, it's
I'm
not.
not
It's
saying I'm
34
it's
here.
not that I've got many acres of corn in front of me. I've actually got
Right.
a pond and some goldfish. But yeah, no, but you get the vibe.
That's nice. I'm jealous. Yeah, we had a very nice weekend here. I am definitely ready for spring. But we get to ride the roller coaster here in Michigan during the spring. So like we're 65. Yesterday the high was 70. Today the high will be like 38.
Oof,
And
swing.
then, yeah, Thursday we'll be back to around 70 again. So you just have to wait a day or two and it'll get better. That's all. So you just be patient. But yeah, so today all market report all the time. Will probably be a little volatile heading into it. Beans are up here as we start the morning, corn's down a bit, wheat's mixed. And so yeah, it'll be all of the report numbers. We'll have those in the morning. Well, we'll have them when they come out. We'll have them shortly after, and then we'll discuss them again tomorrow morning and get to focus on trade. Tomorrow's April
Exactly that.
Fool's Day too. I hate April Fool's Day,
Oh
by
yeah.
the way.
Oh god, it's going
Do
to be
you?
dreadful.
Oh,
But yeah,
I hate
absolutely.
it.
Especially at the moment because I don't know what's a joke
Right?
anymore.
Exactly. Like at
It's
this
like
point, just shut it off because
you could
we
just
have
choose
no
a
idea.
random headline from the last 2 weeks and it'd be like, oh yeah, that's a great April Fool's. Oh shit, that happened last week. It's like,
That is actually from March 12th. Good job,
yeah,
Ryan. Stay on top of
no, exactly
it.
that, exactly that.
So,
Well,
but yeah, that's it for today. We'll see
perfect,
what
Angie.
what the USDA brings.
Thank you so much as always. You're an absolute star. And again, shameless plugs for Angie and Carl's Spaces session later when the report's out. Definitely check that out if you've got an interest in grey markets, which I'm assuming you do because you're listening to us right now. But anyway, have a cracking day. If you are trading, keep it tight. If you're out in the fields or whatever, make sure you stay safe. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Goodbye.
Have a good one.